Howdy, folks. Welcome back. Yeah, that's right. It's the Two Maesters, and we're back for some more funny goodies. That's right, Yoda. But we're not talking about you today. We're talking about Loki.
Yes.
Not just the character, but the TV show, which is phenomenal.
It is.
Absolutely amazing. I'm talking about the first season. I'm aware that I think the second season came out today, or it's coming out tomorrow.
Yeah, it's either today or tomorrow,
Yeah. But before we get into that, how are you doing, Josh?
Good thanks. The weather isn't too bad, especially in London. I think one thing that the viewers will be able to see is this nice new studio where we actually have more light, none of the dull tones that we had in our past studio.
And look, there's a plant in the corner as well. I mean, just make such films. Can't wait to bring guests in and point that out to them. I've never noticed.
Yes.
So, Loki, huh? Let's start with what the synopsis is of Loki before we start talking shop.
Yes.
So, what is Loki? Well, essentially, after stealing the Tesseract during the events of Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
Is it an Endgame? I thought. Oh, yeah, I'm thinking of. Okay. After stealing the Tesseract during the events of Avengers Endgame, an alternative version of Loki is brought to the mysterious Time Variance Authority, a bureaucratic organization that exists outside of time and space and monitors the timeline. He is then given a choice: get pruned, which he assumes means die, or hunt down a mysterious variant that is ambushing and killing members of the TVA. He finds out that this variant is hunting down is no other than himself, but a female version.
Today I lost my other boyfriend.
Which he does fall in love with, which is just so funny.
Yeah, and a bit weird because you're like, that is you from another timeline, but technically isn't you. But then the fact that people and fans are like, well, that is so narcissistic of Loki. The only one he can fall in love with is himself. Of
course he would as well. Is it incest though?
Not really, because I think like the DNA would be different, wouldn't it? So they wouldn't have. So they're not really actually related. Because then does he share DNA with that crocodile Loki?
What, Croaky?
Because
well, he's not dating. He's not in love with the Croaky, so thankfully we won't ever have to answer that question. But oh god, that would be gross. Would not want to imagine that. And that's what I love about at least Loki season 1 is that it's kooky. The sense of humor to it is picked up on what Marvel has been doing good. Since For the Ragnarok, like moving towards a comedy sort of basis. Sometimes I think they overdo it. Like I didn't like Thor Love and Thunder. I thought they're trying too hard to be funny in that. But Thor Ragnarok, amazing. And with this, Loki is a great example of it. It's got that kooky, silly sense of humor, like the TVA and the style of them.
Yeah.
So like, for example, what's the name of the little clock thing? The little character.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Miss something. Miss. I can't remember. I'll have to look up the characters. 1 second. But the style, the TVA and their headquarters is very cool. It's very Art Deco. Yeah. So the music to the show, it reminds me of Fallout.
It does, 100%. Have that like 60s vibe, agency, and it does really give off that like that Fallout vibe. It feels like it could be a vault in and of itself.
Yeah,
and especially like the technology that you see in all the Fallout games, which are kind of like 60s-esque but futuristic. You then see it within the TVA, like the old computers, the old TV screens.
Just like in Fallout, yeah. What would you even call it? It's like retrofuturism. All this advanced technology, but it all looks like something from the 60s, as you say. Just very cool. I like that style.
It did also kind of like, because it came around the same time as like WandaVision and how they had like a whole element in the 60s. It kind of then built on those kind of vibes.
And the black and white as well. And then the slow like realization something's not right. And then the color comes in. We do need to do an episode on WandaVision. I really liked WandaVision. That was cool. And by the way, it was the weird clock character thing that pops up. That's called Miss Minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so essentially, the whole reason why the TVA is disposing of all these variants is because is it Nexus Points that happen or something where essentially there's a point where the Lokis have diverged from a sacred timeline, which some all-powerful being that is the head of the TVA, which we'll talk about in a second, believes is the right way history should progress, and no one really knows why, and it slowly gets to become unraveled, and you find out that the head of the TVA is actually no one else but Kang the Conqueror, or in this case, he who becomes...
Oh, remains.
He who remains, yeah. Which is a cool twist. And what I love is just this idea of all these alternative realities. You do come across that in a lot of shows like Rick and Morty, etc. But in this, you see like different kinds of Lokis and how things could have been different. So in I think episode 5, you get Crocodile Loki, which is just like ridiculous. And then you get a Loki that actually killed Thor.
Yeah, Kid Loki, yeah.
Yeah, very, very cool. And then, of course, Sylvie, which is Loki's love interest.
The boyfriend.
And I think one thing that's always weird is that, like, with Loki, there were many different forms of Loki, but all of the ones that looked like Tom Hiddleston, who were Tom Hiddleston, there were never copies of the others. So, like, you had President Loki, who was dressed up in a suit, which looked like which was Tom Hiddleston.
Whereas the bad one that's trying to hunt them, fight them?
I think that might have been King. Actually, I think, it was President Loki, yeah. But I think, like, the fact that all the Lokis that have copies look like the Loki we're used to, but, like, the other Lokis don't have copies of themselves.
Yeah.
Which is also weird, because maybe that's how you know what is a sacred timeline. And the fact that the actual sacred timeline Loki is the one that's offed by Thanos that actually dies. In Infinity Wars, yeah.
Yeah. Which is funny, because the Lokis say, we're survivors. Like, well, no, you're not. Apparently, according to the sacred timeline, the actual proper Loki is the one that died. So, yeah, crazy. And why is Kang the Conqueror, or He Who Remains?
Yeah.
Why is he set up the TVA? Why is he trying to make things come to the sacred timeline? Why is that?
I believe it's like because he wants to keep his other variants of himself away. Because, like, you do realize, like, in the last episode, the huge reveal that He Who Remains is Kang, and is the Kang that won the war against all other Kangs and was able to then defeat them because he was able to tame the beast. What is the beast called again?
Alioth,
yeah. And was able to use that to then take out all the other Kangs.
Definitely getting used to this new studio.
so then like what he then did was then use them to then wipe out all of the other all the other Kangs.
Finish him.
There we go, nice.
And I think then he's now then established the TVA as a method to then make sure that other Kangs don't come about.
Yeah, and it's interesting, the ending, because they're offered the two Lokis, well, let's call Sylvie and Loki, are given a choice. It's like, you can kill me because of this great necessary evil I've created, and you will unravel everything I've done, and you'll be seeing me again soon. In fact, you'll be seeing many of me's. In fact, you'll start a whole new war.
Yeah.
Or you can go rule as my second in command at the TVA. It can be your own little kingdoms, and we can prevent me from coming and destroying everything.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, because Sylvie's traumatized because she was pruned or taken away as a variant when she was very young, and her life was ruined. She gives into emotions and kills He Who Remains, which is ironic because he doesn't remain anymore.
and I think like one of the key things is that they did really well in the last episode is because where he is technically at the end of time, which technically would be outside of time. Mm-hmm. So therefore, if he died then, that means all his previous stuff he's done no longer matters. Because if you think about it,
you mean He Who Remains?
He Remains. Because like if you think like chronologically, if at the end of time someone dies, that means all their actions still take place.
Yeah.
But the way that they did it was that because he is also kind of outside of time, is that now that he is dead, his actions never count to anything. So that's why there's a huge divergent, but this is my theory, because similar to what we learned in like Endgame, that everything happens in a linear process.
Right.
But because now Kang is outside of time, that means that because he died outside of time, all the things he'd done, all the things he'd held together is now unraveling. And then you've just seen how you see at the end, especially the varying timelines, the TVA in disarray. And
and that's the cool bit. Oh, sorry, finish what you were saying.
And then, like at the end of the episode, finding out that Loki's now been taken to a new TVA.
That was literally what I was going to say. Yeah, because he gets Sylvie just like literally grabs him, kisses him, tricks him. Then good old Loki doing what they do best. Throws him into, I guess by accident, throws him into another timeline where he's just an analyst in a TVA, and that was cool. That was a great ending because he turns on and looks at the statue of Kang with dread, and you got to wonder with this new season. Is he going to have to spend a lot of time basically trying to convince everyone what happened? And looking at the trailer, for example, Sylvie is working in McDonald's, so maybe she won't remember. In this timeline, she's just working in McDonald's.
Yeah, because I think the way that they always say it is that, which is weird, is that so she couldn't, in another universe, she might have not been Loki. Mm-hmm. And I think that's also a point that is Sylvie. So we know Sylvie isn't from the main MCU universe, and we know that Loki has been
okay.
Because we've only the Loki in our universe is the Loki that touched the Tesseract and then ended up in the Gobi Desert and then got taken by the TVA because he was supposed to have died when Thanos killed him. So then we've got Loki back, but then what universe is that Loki in? Or is the TVA outside of time? And therefore, it brings so many questions like, is there multiple TVAs? Or because they killed He Who Remains, all his actions were cancelled out, and now a form of Kang, potentially the Kang in the Ant-Man film, has taken over the TVA? Or are there multiple TVAs?
There must be multiple.
Because then that would be that would be mayhem. Like literally TVAs jumping from different timelines, and then you've spoken to someone like, oh yeah, didn't I just tell you that? And like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. That type of thing could happen. Because imagine like if each Kang has their own form of TVA and they're using that to attack multiple timelines.
That's crazy. You can't have that. That's nuts. Yeah, because then that's their army really. Yeah. Even though there's so many Kangs. Because after finishing rewatching Loki, I watched Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, which I thought was okay. It was funny at points, especially with that guy who was the bad guy in the first Ant-Man being the big head thing. But Kang in it was really cool. But is that Kang dead? That variant of Kang?
That's the question people are asking, is that did he die when he got sucked into that vortex, or is he the same Kang you see at the end of the ending scene where Loki is talking to Agent Morbius, and he's like, that's him. Is that the Kang that got sucked into the vortex and was sent to the past, or is that a completely different Kang, which fans are debating and like anticipating for like season 2? Is this the Kang we saw in Ant-Man, or is this a completely different Kang? And the weird thing is about Kang in and of himself is that he really messes the mind and like messes with it, because like that could be a completely different Kang, or that could be a Kang earlier or later in his life.
Yeah.
So then now you've got the issue is that you're like, okay, then so you saw at the end of Ant-Man, you saw those thousands, probably like tens of thousands of different Kangs. So it could be any one of them, or it could be the same Kang earlier or later in his life.
Yeah, it could be younger Kang before all that happened.
And like one of the things that people have said is like there's two characters in Marvel which you can never truly like defeat. One which is Ultron, and the other is Kang, because Kang is always there. So you might defeat him, but you might have defeated his older version or his younger version or one from a totally different timeline who's now... So it's like there's an infinite amount of possibilities that you think you've defeated him, but he could come back out of nowhere.
So cool. I love his story. It's very simple that he's just a scientist from the 31st millennium who's managed to somehow basically realize that there's basically different realities and layers of universes on top of each other. Because he discovers that and manages to find a way to travel between them, it basically just makes infinite possibilities and causes this sort of this paradox. And he is inevitable, unlike Thanos.
More than you can know.
I know, Thanos, you were gone too soon. But it's funny how Thanos says he's inevitable, but you refuse to agree to that, do you?
Yeah,
you didn't mention him as one of the inevitable characters.
Because I think, like, one, the way he died, and the fact that the TVA is built in such a way that the Infinity Stones meant nothing. Remember, just opening the drawer, like, okay, yeah, we've got loads of stones.
That was such
just
a
put
good
put it in the drawer right here. Because I think another thing that did, and they might have said it, or
paperweights. They use them as paperweights.
And I think, like, the Infinity Stones can only work in their specific universe, because I think they were saying, like, the Infinity Stones are the cornerstone of the development of a universe. So then if you take it out of that universe, they're not as powerful. And also, because the TVA is outside of time, therefore they're pretty useless as well.
Just paperweights.
But I think the key thing that hopefully is going to be something good for Marvel is that they're going to bring back Ultron, because they're like, no androids or robots are allowed in the TVA. Because remember, they had that whole screening thing that you'd have to pass through, and if you were an organic life form, you'd go through. But if you're an android or a robot, it would then just be vaporized. And I think it's and I think it's like the whole fear that maybe Kang and He Who Remains fears Ultron.
Right, because that could potentially defeat him. Because how do you defeat something which is inevitable? I guess there's something else which is inevitable. But then, is that just not an inevitable war for inevitable amounts of time? And then Thanos is just like...
Today I lost more than you can know.
Poor Thanos, you've gone too soon. And Thanos, Kang is like... He's just fighting because he's infinite and he's, I guess, power hungry. While Thanos, he's an environmentalist. Like, we're pro Thanos. Look at our plant in the corner. Actually, there's two. I swear I didn't see that one before. So what were some like cool moments or things about Loki? I think just to start things off, I love the intro music in the intro cutscene. It's very kooky, sort of sciencey sounding. It has it goes with the vibe of the show.
And funnily enough, it kind of, at some points, it did kind of feel like a show that you really don't like an episode of Doctor Who, especially when Loki and Sylvie go on their adventures on that mining planet and they help on the train. And I think one thing I did like is that it kind of showed us the alien side of Marvel that we rarely ever get to see. Like, I think, like, even like the Marvel Universe aliens are older than Star Wars. Because like the comic books and like
when they were written,
so they were like in the 60s, and then maybe George Lucas started writing about Star Wars in the 60s, but then the first Star Wars came out in the late 70s. But like the established like some of the alien planets, like Titan, where the Titans are from, so like where Thanos is from, is like that was developed before Star Wars came out, and it's everything Marvel seemed to be like Earth centric, apart from like Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, you're right.
And then
it's slowly sort of branching out more and more.
Which is really good. And then another thing I really did like was like the scene with Sif. Like the amount of times he tried to convince her, and the fact that you started to see that deep down,
when she kept kicking him in the nuts. Yeah,
that you actually realize that then the hero arc that the previous Loki went through that kind of changed who he was. This Loki can actually go through it as well. So he's still the same Loki. Because at first I was thinking, he hasn't gone through that whole hero arc. Is he just going to be a backstabber who's just trying to kill people at every point in time? And I think the fact that the TVA were like, we know who you are, Loki. You can't fool us, no matter what you do. And he kept on trying over and over and over and over again.
And Mobius says that as well. It's like, I got fooled by a Loki. I thought we were friends, blah, blah, blah. Mobius is a strange character. He seems to want to make friends more than do his job.
But then I think what they were saying is that it's also partly down to who they actually were, because you know that all the TVA agents are actually variants themselves.
Yeah.
So potentially his actual person is a person who loves making friends, who's a joyous person.
Who loves jet skis as well.
Yeah. And that could be like what's coming off onto this character. And like, for example, you did see that the person who was the teacher when she found out. So maybe that's why she's a very...
Who's actually Ravonna Renslayer, the judge.
So potentially maybe that's why she is in like a disciplinarian character and likes discipline, because of the teacher aspects that she finds within her. And that's the question that some fans have theorized, is that do variants still have the personalities of the people that they are the variants of?
Well, yeah, because it seems like, for example, the Loki's a core concept is they are God. They're a Norse God. They all believe that. They all have sort of a core basis, but the variance is like these little minute details, which, well, I say minute details, some of them are quite big. Like one of them's a crocodile, one of them's a kid that kills his brother Thor, though that could have just happened earlier on, because I guess it could happen at any time in the timeline. Some interesting stuff to point out there. So I really liked it when the variants start to realize, or the people who work for TVA start to realize their variants. So, for example, Sylvie, when Loki's like, "You're enchanting them," and it's like, "No, I'm not. I'm just showing them memories of their life before they got wiped." And when she takes Hunter B-15 aside and shows her what she really was, I loved that scene. The music and the rain and the Nexus point where they were, and Hunter B-15 turns around and says, "I was happy." It's weird because this is like, it's a comic book comedy sort of thing, but I found it quite touching at points. The emotional moments were well done. The soundtrack was good for it, and the dialogue was very good, and that was a cool moment for me. By the way, on a random note, you know what Mobius's character, what his full name is?
Well, what's his full name?
Mobius M. Mobius. Yeah, literally. No joke. I mean, I don't think they ever point that out on the show. It might come up in season 2, but on the sites I was looking at for my research, it's Mobius M. Mobius. What do you reckon the M stands for?
Mobius, most likely.
Mobius.
And I just think
is inevitable.
They probably then just use like a generator to give them all their names. Because then they don't have their name.
In the TVA.
So that means the TVA must have like given them their names, because it's like you can't give them the names of the variants. And that's why they kind of, until like Loki became like a part-time TVA agent, they kept on calling him by
consultant.
A consultant, they kept on calling him by his variant number.
Yeah. That's true. They were, and he had that jacket on as well, which was funny.
And also, like, one thing I did like was the fact that when you did see like the 3 aliens, you were thinking, so it's just going to be this type of thing, and then to find out that that's just a cover, I think I really did enjoy that, because that does seem like something that kind of felt like Wizard of Oz-ish.
Yeah, I guess so, but I like the ongoing mystery, because usually when you find out what the monster looks like in a horror movie, it's like loses a lot of its charm. Yeah. Same with like these mysteries, and with this I like it how they kept that going to the very last penultimate episode, and you realize it's Kang, or He Who Remains, and very well done. I thought that was cool. Yeah. I think another cool sort of thing about this is basically when you see it as like an homage, and I hate using that word, it sounds so pretentious, but it feels like a detective show at points, an adventure at other points, a comedy at certain points, maybe more of a black comedy than a serious one. But I like it when these comic shows or these shows or movies or comic books basically pay homage to a genre. Like, for example, Mandalorian's not a comic, but it's a Western, isn't it? It really gives off that Western energy, and that works well for these big genres, whilst I think when Marvel's just repeating the same superhero genre, it's a bit like it does get old.
Yeah. And like, I think that's the reason why I really loved WandaVision, because it was like, it's a sitcom, but what we're going to do is take what sitcoms were like in the 50s. I think they started in the 40s, then 50s, 60s, 70s.
And then ending with the Office style.
And I think I really enjoyed it because it's like the style that you see, and probably imagine like parents and grandparents watching it together. They'd be like, oh, that sounds similar to like the Dick Van Dyke Show that I watched when growing up. And I think like that was I think a key part and special part of it was that it had that kind of vibe to it, similar to like the Thor film was like, it didn't take itself, the third one, didn't take itself too seriously. When it needed to be serious, it was serious. But when it was funny, it was hilarious.
Yeah.
I think that's what it kind of, that Marvel tried to do, which it's kind of done well. It's even with like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, that it was basically like a spy thriller. And that's how the show was meant to be.
It plays homage to a genre, and it feels better, doesn't it? It's actually, because the superhero genre's just got really dry now with Marvel doing it over and over again.
Yeah.
Some other good moments, or maybe more like it's such as like funny moments, I guess. When in episode 2, Loki finally meets his just literally forgot his variant, and he goes, "Me, I presume." Like, just the dialogue in this show is fantastic. Like, it really cracks me up. And like, for example, again, up some good dialogue in episode 6, more of a cooler thing rather than a funny thing. But when He Who Remains says, "If you think I'm evil, just wait until you meet my variants." And it's like, just so cool. Like, bit more like original. Rather than, the classic hero and action movie cliches that just get a bit cringy after a while.
And I think the one thing I did like was that it kind of made it seem that Sylvie was the main Loki. And like the fact that everyone was like, yeah, Loki, you're just some side Loki. This is the real thing. Loki. And it actually started to piss him off a bit, because you could see in several episodes, he's like, no, I am the real Loki.
Yeah. And Croaky was the real Loki.
And the fact that he then puts that aside, and I think really that fans really loved in episode 6 when he's like, you know what, I'm going to be unselfish. I'm going to put all the what makes a Loki aside and actually be the person that I'm supposed to be. And you do see it in clips like throughout the films, especially when Loki is speaking to him and Thor's mum. Like their dialect and conversations, like she's like, you see it, especially when you go back to like Endgame, and not Endgame, Endgame, when they have the flashback when she speaks to Thor, and also in the second Thor film, when she's having a discussion with him, is that she can see like the good in Loki.
Yeah.
And I think that's something
moment.
and I think that's why fans love Loki, because it's like, he's a bad person who does bad things, but at times he does it because he believes that's what he's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm supposed to be the mischievous. And I remember it's so funny. It's like he was talking to Morbius. He's like, yeah, I'm supposed to be mischievous. And he's like, yeah, but then how does mischief turn into downright murder?
Yeah. Again, great dialogue. I know. I love it. It just felt like a very original, entertaining show. A quick question for you. Has there been any reference to the TVA in the other Marvel movies? And then, if not the movies, then what about the comics?
Comics, yes.
Okay.
So the movies, I think they kind of discuss it. Well, at the end of Ant-Man, when you have like Morbius and also Loki at the end scene.
Of Ant-Man?
Yeah. So there's
First one?
Yeah. No, third one.
What,
Quantumanium.
yeah.
So they have 2 end credit scenes. One is...
I literally only watched the first one. I was like, why are they doing 2 end credits?
Yeah, they did. So you had the one where you had the Council of Kangs, which you've got the thousands, maybe tens of thousands of Kangs in one room.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that was really clever and cool is that, the scene where all of them are like shouting, partying?
Yeah.
That's actually carbon copy from the comic.
Oh, right. Okay, that's good.
Which is really cool. And then at the end, you see Victor Timely, which is another persona of Kang, who then's around in the late 1800s, around the same time of like Thomas Edison, who then peddles some of his technology at that point in time. And that's one of the personas that Kang the Conqueror uses. So that's why fans are like, so the Kang the Conqueror must have been the one in Ant-Man, because all other Kangs sent him to the quantum realm, I think it was called. Yeah, quantum realm.
Quantum realm, yeah.
To basically be in exile. So he must be the main Kang. So that means that he might be Victor Timely. And I think that's why some fans are like, oh, so maybe he did survive and was just thrown back in time, because the device that they destroyed is like can send someone within time and space.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because I wasn't sure what in Ant-Man what the device was.
Yeah.
That he was like killed with.
And I think like one of the things that most fans don't know is that Kang is actually a Fantastic Four villain.
No, really?
His first introduction was like within the Fantastic Four, and it's believed that he's either a descendant of he actually is a descendant of Reed Richards. So Mr. Fantastic.
Oh, right, okay.
And he also believes in some of the comics that he's a variant of Doctor Doom.
Oh, right, okay.
And funny enough, at times
so meta.
Yeah,
they're all related to each other.
And at times, like him and Doctor Doom have like a good relationship, because they're like like in the main comics, him and Doctor Doom never really killed or fought each other, because they were both thinking that, okay, then what if I am a future version of you, or what if you're a past version of me? So that us killing each other could potentially wipe one of us out, or potentially both of us.
Right.
And I think with Kang is that the Fantastic Four would always fight him, defeat him. He would then be like, he'd either die or then disappear and then come back again. And I think that's the key thing that they want to have for this whole story arc to do with Kang, is that he will never be fully defeated. He's just out there.
Is he ever fully defeated in the comics?
No.
That's sick. That's good. Because the thing I found of like Infinity War and Endgame is like they just did the classic plot armor trick where if someone really does like, if something really bad does happen to the good guys, they just get over it by time travel. And essentially I thought Thanos, because that's why I loved Infinity War, because it ended with the good guys losing, and I like that.
Straight Empire Strike Back.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm really sick of plot. I only found out what plot armor meant like a year ago, and just I'm really sick of it. I see it in like a lot of Star Wars, for example. Like, I don't want to talk about too much because we need to talk about Ahsoka next week, but you just know all these stormtroopers going to be shooting at them. Like, they could walk into a hall of 1,000 stormtroopers and like they just never get shot and they're fine, or they might get injured, but they're fine. You know, I like seeing I like in Game of Thrones because main characters die, they get maimed. Like you feel like anyone could get taken away from you. I'm sick of plot armor.
Yeah, and I think the first show I really saw that in that I was shocked was Spooks on BBC.
Spooks, right? Yeah, the
like
spy show. Yeah,
the first like season, someone who'd been there for the first 3 episodes, who you thought was like going to be a major character, ends up dying, and you're like, what? Like, wow, like, yeah, like all out of nowhere, all of a sudden dies, and you're like, wow, like I thought she'd be here until the end of the season. And I think I do get your point that you don't want it to be that fans are like, oh, well, they fight this person, they fight that person, but we know that they'll all be here on the last episode, so...
Yeah, exactly. It feels like whenever there's a plot to kill them, it's like it's just never going to work out or something, you know?
And it kind of feels like Marvel are trying to find more and creative ways to have the heroes win, the bad guys lose, but not to be like full-on stereotype. Like, you know, the whole thing, like, superhero gets their powers or saves the day in a small event. The villain is away trying to build up their power.
Yeah.
The superhero fights the villain and gets whooped. He then has to find himself or him or herself and understand who they are. They then go up against the villain. Either at that point they defeat the villain, or they fail and then realize they have to find a specific thing or team up.
Time travel
Now time travel and then defeat the villain. But that's why fans I think have gravitated to Loki, because like Loki isn't technically a hero.
Yeah,
he's not technically a superhero. Yeah. And I think another thing that fans are really wanting is that to have more of the R-rated stuff, like Blade, which was postponed due to the writer's strike.
Yeah.
Daredevil, Deadpool, the Punisher TV series, which is also to be coming out. Mm-hmm. So it's like if like the bad guys end up losing, it's still done in a way that, a lot of the good guys had to sacrifice so much to get there. And I think that's what fans actually prefer.
Yeah.
Like, how much did the Starks have to sacrifice to get to becoming in charge of Winterfell at the end? Or Daenerys,
as well. Like, sometimes the good become the bad by defeating the evil.
Yeah.
You know.
Or being corrupted by so many different things that have gone wrong. And I think that's why fans, like, when they rewatch, like, Revenge of the Sith and the prequels, they really enjoy it, because it's like the person who was supposed to save the day has now been corrupted by basically life and all the situations he's been through.
Yeah.
And the fact that he thought that the only way I can save, for example, Padme, is to follow this path and follow the path to the Sith.
Yeah.
I think that's, Loki's kind of like done the opposite, and it's still like Loki didn't really save the day at the end of Loki season 1. Because if you think about it, it ended.
You know,
well, neither of them saved the day, if you really think about it. And I think the way it was, like, it ended not like, oh, we've defeated the He Who Remains, and now we've saved the day. Everyone in the TVA is free to go home. It's like, no, Sylvie's now killed He Who Remains, and now has messed up everything.
And Loki's in another timeline that wasn't the one he was originally in.
And then potentially, it's opened so many Pandora's boxes of which, like, superheroes could be coming back from the dead.
Yeah.
Which superheroes, for example, you see in, like, Doctor Strange, you see Mr. Fantastic's there.
Yeah.
You've got I think Captain Britannia, she's in also there as well.
Damn time.
And the question that people are asking is that now that this has been opened up, like, so wide, is that the reason why there was another Earth in the Doctor Strange film?
Oh, I still need to watch the Doctor Strange movies. It seems like every time I start the first one, because I've heard that's really good, something just comes up, and it's got to the point where I'm so sick of watching, like, the first half an hour. I do need to get into that, because Multiverse Madness explains also a lot of, you know, what Kang is coming from, you know, all these different multiverses.
Yeah. And, like, that's the thing that fans also want to get out of Marvel, is that you've seen the Spider-Man film, Far From No Way Home.
Nope. I still haven't watched those. I know, I've got some homework to do.
So not to spoil everything, like, you kind of get a vibe of other worlds in that film as well. And it seems like since the end of Loki, they've brought in other worlds.
It's the new dynamic in the Marvel.
And then, so fans are like, would this have happened if He Who Remains was still alive? Or has this happened because he's died? And also the fact...
Point in the timeline, has he died?
And the way that he's died, does it mean that they are now considered always in existence? Or have they just become existent?
No, because of the branching.
Yeah. So then,
good point.
Because then, like, if the branch happened from the beginning of time, therefore all other worlds are now fully established and are actually happening. So therefore, they're happening concurrently with the MCU universe, rather than him dying and now they've just started. So you kind of see that.
Need to get you like a whiteboard. You know,
yeah, it's like writing all of this stuff down, because it's like so many different fan theories that can come from, which came from Loki, which is, I think, is really
meant to happen. Maybe was it part of the timeline that the end the He Who Remains dies and this happens, and then therefore it was well, this is just one universe within many more. I mean, probably not, but like it's just endless, isn't it? You go into like an infinity loop.
Yeah, and I think another thing is that what if the He Who Remains wanted to die, but didn't want to kill himself?
Well, he did want to die, didn't he? Because he said, I'm tired.
So maybe he didn't even, he knew they wouldn't accept his proposition, or one of them wouldn't, and was basically like, I want to die, but I don't want to kill myself, so I'll get them to do it.
Yeah, which worked out pretty well.
Or maybe what he wants to do is basically do the exact same thing, but in a different way.
Maybe. He was getting awfully bored being at the end of time. I mean, in a palace by himself, just eating apples.
So where did he get the apples from?
Yeah, well, I don't know. There's so many questions you could ask. Like, because also like people who like, so for example, Captain Marvel, how has she not discovered this? You know, how have, you know, I guess because she hasn't strayed from the sacred tie line, or, you know, but just really possibly strong characters. Like, how did Thanos not know about it? How did Ultron not know? But whatever. We'll be on this paradox forever.
And it's like, I think a scientist said it. Yes, I think it was like based on like string theory. Neil deGrasse Tyson was just talking about it. He's saying like, the fact that someone can be standing on something or someone can be within something, but someone who's outside will have a better picture of what's going on. Like, for example, if you're playing a football match, you can't see the whole pitch. You can't see the whole vision behind it. But the commentators can see the whole match, so they can report on everything. So that could be the issue, that Captain Marvel, Thor, Odin, and other major characters like Thanos, even possibly like Dormammu, who are extremely powerful, because they're actually in it, they don't understand that it's just, there's an actual confines to it, while someone standing outside can actually look at it.
I know, it's like they should have kept He Who Remains Alive, because look what they've done. Idiots, honestly. Bloody emotion.
Yeah. And like, it's a spoiler. Do you mind a spoiler for Doctor Strange?
I don't care. Go on.
So in Doctor Strange, they kill Thanos. So in
the Multiverse of Madness.
In Multiverse of Madness, the world that he goes to, they actually killed Thanos.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I think the way that
I lost more than you can know.
The way they do it is that they use, I think, if I'm remembering it correctly, Doctor Strange uses the Darkhold. So basically a book that has unmentionable evil within it. So you know the book that Wanda has in WandaVision?
Right.
So it's a really powerful book. They do mention it in the Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show. The book is also linked to other heroes, like, for example, Ghost Rider. He's also linked to that book as well. So it's like a book full of, it's like, the book's like Pandora's box. So it's a book full of evil. And he used the power from that book to then kill Thanos. So it means that there was a Thanos in another universe. So then and they also mention in the Doctor Strange film is that if someone jumps from one universe into another, if they stay there too long, or beings jump back and forth from the universe, then the universe will then start to converge.
Right.
And then the more dominant universe will be the one that survives.
Right, okay.
So potentially at the end of Doctor Strange, we're thinking that because he had gone into that world, the other world, he has caused a conversion of two universes where there is a Mr. Fantastic, where there is a Charles Xavier. So that means there must be an X-Men in that universe. There is a Fantastic Four in that universe.
Well, I know in the next Deadpool you have Wolverine, so perhaps that's what is something that's come out.
Yeah. So potentially people are saying, so is that how we get the Fantastic Four and X-Men into the MCU? Because the universes that they're both in, because of Doctor Strange, have now collided together. Yeah, and that is actually, there's actually a comic book series. It's called Secret Wars.
Right.
So my brother Jeffrey knows more about this, but it's like universes are fighting each other for supremacy. So it's literally really cool, because it's like cutthroat, that you can have like heroes and villains from the same universe fighting together to fight other heroes and villains. So like imagine like Venom, Hulk, Doctor Doom fighting together against another.
Ant-Man versus Ant-Man, that would be quite funny.
And then even like in another universe having like, let's say the Thing from the Fantastic Four, Wolverine, and maybe Spider-Man fighting against them just to save their own specific universes.
You know, Deadpool versus Deadpool, that would just be endless, wouldn't it? Because they're both immortal, aren't they?
Yeah. And funnily enough about that story is like, the one thing that they didn't bring out about Thanos that's in the comic books is that he's a lot more evil. And it's because that he is a deviant of the Titans.
Right.
So a deviant is someone, so basically similar to the English word of deviant, someone who's very, very evil. So he's basically a genetic defect of the Titans, and because he has this defect, he has a real link and really wants to do evil. So then death in the
doing good, mate.
Yeah, that's why in Endgame he kind of switches. So you actually get to see his real personality. So he wasn't trying to save the universe. He was trying to play God. And then when he realized, you know what? I'm such a great being. I tried to save them. You know what? I'll get rid of all of them. And then I will make them again and get rid of them again and continue the cycle. So then you actually start to think to yourself, maybe he isn't so much of an environmentalist. He's just someone with a God complex who wanted a reason to have a God complex.
Overprotective dad. That's the most underrated quote.
But actually, that would be a very, very funny quote. Like imagine in the films, see this overprotective dad take it too far.
Yeah, exactly. It's like there's this Reddit page. It's like describe a movie plot badly, and it's like very simplified. Or just like put in the wrong one. That would fit in. That's a word.
Or a gardener who wants to have more place for his plants. Yeah. Because he just goes back to be a gardener after he completes the
use the plants to pot the plants. Okay. What do you want to see in Loki season 2?
I want them to explain a bit more like what's happening in the Marvel universe. Because we've had the constant discussion of like, what's the difference between realms? Like, for example, you've got the realms that are mentioned, Asgard. You've also got Midgard, which is Earth, and you've also got
as well.
Yeah, you've got like the different 9 realms, which are all connected into Norse mythology. You then watch like Moon Knight, and then you see like the action. So in the Moon Knight, it's a very good TV show. It's also very, very graphic, and that's another reason why I like it. Is that it's not set to the tone of other Marvel shows. It's like completely different.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah. And like it has the Egyptian gods in it. So then the thing is that the Egyptian gods have left the earthly plane. So what they do is they have avatars that they take control over.
Right, okay.
And you then realize that Moon Knight is actually an avatar for one of the Egyptian gods. Mm-hmm. And I think, so you've got the Egyptian gods. You've also got we saw in Thor, God of Thunder, that Love and Thunder.
God of Thunder.
So you have like loads of gods in a different pantheon. I think one of the gods there was the gods of either the Incas or the Aztecs. He was there. You also had gods from different alien species. And then you've also got like the god for the what's T'Challa's people called again? Wakandans, yeah. So they worship Bast, and the question is that, and so they take the kings who died to the ancestral plane. So that's where T'Challa currently is now. That's where Killmonger is. That's where all of the Black Panthers go when they die. Mm-hmm. But then the question is then what is
that vision?
So then what is that space? And then as many people have said, what's the difference between a universe and a timeline? Is a timeline something that is a timeline linked to a single universe? Or can a universe have multiple timelines within it? Yeah. And I think that's what Loki could really help with, is our understanding of what are the difference between the three, how are they linked all together, and also what is the current state of the Marvel Cinematic.
Do you think the majority of the crowd that watches Marvel will be able to handle that information? Because I'm not gonna lie, my brain is about to explode. I don't think I'm the majority though.
I think it will take them time. I think they have to take it as slow as possible, because like the TVA is like a small tip on the iceberg, because they then have to explain. They did explain like in the Doctor Strange movie that each world has a specific number, similar to like the comic book universes. So each universe has a number similar to the comic books. So you've got Earth or Marvel 616. You've got different comic book numbers, and that's how Marvel differentiates from the different worlds. So they've then brought that into Doctor Strange and into the MCU universe. So then the question is that are they then going to take it further? Are we going to then see films from other universes? Are they now saying that, for example,
or just redo all of the Marvel movies, starting with Iron Man 1, so just from a different universe?
And then also the fact that you probably know from the Spider-Man film, the third one, that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire appeared in it.
Yeah, oh yeah, I know that from the trailer.
So then are they saying that those are different Marvel worlds based on the comic book, or are they completely different worlds? And people have asked, like, are we going to get more films from Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man? Are we going to get more films from Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man? And even like Into the Animated Film, funnily enough, has links to different Spider-Man films. So people are like, is that in the MCU as well? Or is that completely different?
Are we going to have Kang the Conqueror cancelled because the actor's been up to something funky?
And I think that's what
fits in with the law.
And I think that's what, like, I think they can do with Loki is answer so many different questions, because Loki is the actual TV series where they actually focus on
what is this?
What is the realms? What is the timelines that are taking place? Because like you can't really mention it in the any of the Captain America or Captain Marvel. Well, technically you can. Have you seen any of the trailers to the Marvels film?
No, not the Marvels.
So I think they might mention it there.
I keep thinking it's called the Marvelettes, but that's a band.
Hey, maybe they might do an homage.
I keep misreading.
They might do an homage to it in the.
Yeah. Hey, wait a minute, Mr. Postman. Whoa. Love that song.
So I'm thinking that they could really use that to set the tone of what are we going to be doing for the rest of the Marvel for this phase. And
yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah,
because I think of He Who Remains at the end. There's so much more left to be explained than just like who he is and why there's going to be variants of him. I think in terms of what's going to happen with Loki season 2, Loki is very clearly in another timeline, so he's going to have to like retread his steps and explain everything again to Mobius and Hunter B-15, and maybe also because we're forgetting that there's the other bad guy, and although her motivations seem questionable, Ravonna Renslayer, the judge, the one who's offended Mobius.
Funny enough, in many of the comics, she's married to Kang.
Oh,
yeah. So in many different,
she's definitely gonna be a bad person,
and many different variants that they are married together. So maybe that's why. Maybe that's what happen further down the line. But then also, now that timeline has changed, the question that fans are asking is like, is that the new timeline for where Loki was supposed to be?
Oh no, not this again.
Or is it the fact that he's now moved to another timeline, which is a key thing that he could still be in this
paradox. Yeah, it's just endless possibilities and leads so many questions. It's all just a case of what the studio will pump out, I guess, what they think will work. So they could go, and it's great for the studio because they could really just make this stuff up really as they go along and just say, well, technically it's in the law, it's just not there.
And I think that's what I think Marvel has that Star Wars doesn't, is that Marvel and like also DC, they have throughout the lore spoken about having different worlds, different timelines, different Earths. And I think like it's the issue you have with Star Wars is that they're trying to implement it now, but then fans are like, wait a second, where is this coming from? Like
Ahsoka and Anakin,
But like in Marvel, it's been like I think they've been doing it for like maybe 50 years. They've been talking about so this is time travel has been a part of Marvel since almost its inception.
So technically, it's been in the law already, which is good because I feel like a lot of these big universes are trying to use that as a good way of basically just filling in plot holes because they've got different directors on and different writers and stuff like that and lazy storytelling. But I'm glad to hear that there's actually, by design, somewhat, although there's also a good way of covering up plot holes as well, I can imagine. Okay, what do you think is going to happen to Sylvie?
I think what's going to happen is that Loki's going to try and get her to be who she was before. Mm-hmm. But I think he's going to be also skeptical of it. Like,
she looks like she's at McDonald's and she doesn't know what's going on.
So the question is if she then, because Sylvie was filled with a lot of hate and trauma because of all the stuff that she went through. So then the question you then have to ask is that, will he allow her to remember all of that stuff and become that person? Or will he help her to be a new person who doesn't have all that emotional trauma and emotional baggage that she had before?
That's the thing about trauma; it's very hard to get rid of.
But the thing is, now that Kang, this is the whole cluster, the mess of it all, is like, because He Who Remains is now dead, does that mean that she never went through any of that stuff?
It could be. I mean, this could just be a variant. How do we know this is the actual one? No, it could just be a variant. Yeah, we'll see what happens with Sylvie. I think it's a case that because she was there at the end of time, maybe her mind has been wiped or something, and it is the actual Sylvie as opposed to a variant. But who knows? That remains to be seen. And He Who Remains. So, who was your favorite Loki out of all the ones you saw? If there was a particular Loki you would like to see, which one would it be?
I've forgotten what the actor's called, but the older Loki.
Yeah, he's a really famous actor, isn't he?
I keep on forgetting his name.
I've got it here somewhere. It was... I've seen him in so many movies and shows. Richard E. Grant, he's classic Loki. Yeah.
And I think that if we could get more story about him, because it seems like he's been through a lot. And that's why he was like, of all of them, so you had like Kid Loki and you had like classic Loki who were actually trying to help Loki to be able to find Him Who Remains. While the others were like too busy caring about, no, we want to take over this place. But in fact, this place is being torn apart and will soon no longer exist. But they're like, no, but I still want to be king of this place. And it is like weird, the fact that the Lokis, to your point, are survivors. Because like even in the last stitched, in the garbage place of the universe, in the garbage pile, the Lokis still survive and still thrive there.
They're survivors, apart from the Loki that dies in the sacred timeline. I would like to see a King Loki, actually. I know you got that Loki that comes in and tries to fight with them in the garbage place at the end of time. But I would like to see a Loki that became the King of Asgard. That would be interesting, just because it would... I'd like to see what... If Loki... Because a lot of Lokis, he's always mischief, he's always plotting because he wants to get into power, he wants to rule. But what happens if he actually gets that? Would he be a good ruler? Would he still be fun? Would he still be mischievous? Would he be a horrible ruler? Who really knows?
Yeah, which is true. And I think because like throughout the films and also even with the Loki TV series, he's trying to get a form of power.
Yeah, he's always craving it.
And he's always chasing it. And it'd be nice to see like what happens when Loki gets the power and then is put in charge of people's well-being.
And he's like, I don't know what
Is it more like, okay, then I need to get people who actually know what to do? And
it's like office politics, everyone's climbing a greasy ladder.
That would actually be hilarious if they did an episode like The Office, but for like Loki, who's king, being basically saying, okay, then, so what do we do to sort out this out?
Isn't it? Yeah. It'd be a great WandaVision episode, wouldn't it? Okay, some trivia for you related to Loki. So Owen Wilson, who plays Mobius in it, rather than read the comics to understand the Marvel Universe and the characters playing, actually had Tom Hiddleston explain it all to him. Which very much feels like I'm Owen Wilson at the moment and you're Tom Hiddleston. See, there's always got to be someone who knows the lore to explain it to the others.
And I think I actually prefer it that way because then it then helps their relationship on screen. Because then basically he feeds off the Loki that Tom Hiddleston has created. And you kind of like see that in the way
method acting, isn't it? Yeah.
You kind of see it in the way that Mobius was like, okay, then
he's questioning Loki all the time. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, then I'm going to build my character based off this Loki and how he sees the Marvel Universe, not based off how it's written by the original comic writers or any animated stuff. I'm going to get it sold from the person I'm working with, which I think really does help.
Yeah, I guess so. It's part of the sort of fabric of Mobius's character. I really want to understand who he was before the TVA when he was a variant, but perhaps we'll see in season 2. Okay, some more trivia. In the comics, each agent of the Time Variance Authority resembled the Marvel Comics writer-editor Mark Grunwald. This was a joke, as Grunwald's job as editor was to maintain continuity across the Marvel universe, which I think is a lovely bit of trivia. He is He Who Remains, isn't he? He is the Time Variance Authority. Very like cool little trivia there. I guess that'd be too hard to do in real life on screen because I don't know how they do that they duplicate. You know, when you got a character talking to himself in the scene, how do they use, you can see a lot of time they use careful camera angles, but then I guess they use a lot of green screen and get people in morph suits on. Do you think we'll see any other variations of Loki, and what variations might we see?
I believe we will. I think we'll see Richard E. Grant character again, I believe.
Yeah, he's too much of a big actor not to have it in the classic Loki.
But I think one thing I'm thinking is that will we see other variants of other Marvel characters?
Yeah.
Potentially those who have died.
Evil Thor.
True. Now that would actually be,
good,
I think.
Thanos. Well, sorry, evil Thanos, because Thanos was good.
If you think.
Maybe one where Peter Quill does get Thanos' approval. Like best boyfriend ever.
And that's how Infinity War ends. There's a wedding scene.
Here comes the bride. Yeah, exactly.
And just one quick point on that is that Marvel fans think that the actual proper universe that it should be is the universe where Doctor Strange, in the Doctor Strange film, which has Doctor Strange, has also the Professor X and Mr. Fantastic, that's actually what the main storyline main universe is supposed to be, and that the MCU universe is a branch off that Kang has made because that suits his purposes best. Because if you think about it, with you don't really want to deal with mutants at all because that's a huge bag of like how many different things are out there with mutants. You've got so many different mutant powers and different variations of said powers, and then you also have with the Fantastic Four, you've got all those different variants. So maybe some people are saying is that Kang, He Who Remains, has limited the amount of things that have happened in that universe to limit that there are no X-Men, there aren't like real powerful comic books. Like for example, people like where's like Galacticus, who's a big Fantastic Four villain, who's basically cosmic level bad entity. Well, he's not really bad. He's just
like galactic conquering level. Yeah.
So he basically is a being that needs to eat planets to survive. Mm-hmm. So he's not really evil. He's just like hungry.
No, it's just he can't help his nature.
Yeah. So some fans are saying he did something to prevent their existence in the sacred timeline. Mm-hmm. So they then couldn't.
I think that's just lazy storytelling. I think it's just Marvel not having the budget to bring everyone in. Because this is the issue I find that with these big superhero universes, they have so many superheroes and they don't have time. They do these spin-offs, they do like the Thor movies, they do this and that, but I hate when they just throw them all in because the more you have of each superhero, the less they can spend more quality time to understand them. Yeah. I do think they've done well in sometimes. Like, I liked Captain America, Civil War, so you really delve into not just Captain America, but also Tony Stark and that. It's not just let's mash all these superheroes together. But I'm sort of struggled with say Age of Ultron and some of the other superhero movies where they've just got too many in there. And if they had all the villains in and all the superheroes at once, it'd just be it'd be so overstimulating, So we'll see. It's been a lot to unravel in my mind, these different timelines and planes between planes. And quick question to you. When do you think was a Nexus point in your life? What comes off the top of your head? This could be very traumatic, this question.
Funnily enough, I think where I went for sixth form.
Sixth form, right.
Because then that kind of decided my current friendship group. It also decided where I went to university.
Right.
It also decided the course I did, which then linked to what I'm doing now. And then also the friends I've been able to build along the way. So I'd say, So the Nexus point was not staying in my current school and going to another sixth form.
Okay, and what do you think a variance of you could have been if you had stayed in that school?
I think if I stayed in that school, I think my variant would... I think you would have probably stuck in engineering.
Not that I've got anything against engineering.
or maybe even worse, gone into like the mathematics and economics and all that stuff. Yeah.
I know, and you might be really rich, God forbid.
but
terrible variant.
But always wanting more and more money, I think.
Yeah, well.
What about yourself? What about yourself, Morgan?
Oh, God, I think a Nexus point for me. Oh, goodness. Oh, I think probably going traveling after my first year of university. I know that's so cringe, but I generally if I hadn't have done that then, I probably would never have seen, maybe it would have happened at some other point later on, but I probably wouldn't have been as much outgoing and so interested in traveling and so addicted to it. Because of that, it helped me get out of a very tough spot. And I realized what it does for you mentally doing that. Things though, I don't think it was necessarily a Nexus point, because I probably would have realized that anyway, because eventually I would have traveled abroad and done something. But maybe it was at that certain point at the time I was a bit more open-minded about something. I think it opened me to learning Spanish as well.
Oh, you can speak Spanish?
Barely.
Okay.
Muy bien. I say gracias when a waiter serves me at a Mexican restaurant, so I'm pretty fluent. Yeah. But it did open my mind to learning it. And I think there's another Nexus point where I should have kept going with it, because I was solidly doing it for a year or so. And I wasn't fluent, but I was getting there. But I just let life get in the way, unfortunately. So maybe another Nexus point, but a variant of me would be Spanish Morgan.
Yeah. And we could have a Spanish podcast talking about the Two Maesters.
The Two Maesters. Yeah, El Dos Maestros, or Maestros Dos. I don't know. Been too long. Well, on that note, I bid adios, mi amigos. Donde está el bibi? That's all, folks. We're gonna have to leave it there for today. It's been fun testing out our new studio. Yes. I've got to admit, I've been loving. It just sounds better, doesn't it?
It does. And I think one thing that is nice is actually being able to see outside and having some form of kind of windows. Unlike where we were before and
plants, man.
Yeah, but it kind of felt kind of claustrophobic, because you'd go in, there was no actual natural light coming into the room at all. The door would shut, and then you wouldn't be able to hear or interact with anything at all.
Plus the antisocial behavior that kept going on, and we kept having to be blamed for, even though we're just two nerdy podcasters. We're just here to do a podcast. God damn it. Yeah, well, hopefully we'll come back for this soon. But yeah, and to our audience, I keep looking away through the cameras over there.
Old habits.
Yeah, old habits die hard. But we've really enjoyed what we've been doing so far, and we're glad to see that a lot of our subscribers have followed through with the change we've done to our structure on YouTube and come over and subscribe to our channel. And if the rest of you haven't, please come along, because we love you and we can't keep doing this without you. The more subscribers we get, the more content we have, the more guests we can have on as well. In terms of the next episodes we're doing, we've got Ahsoka coming up. We've got a Doctor Who episode, which I'm reluctantly going to do, but you gotta know your enemy, and I'm up for that. And we'll be having some repeating guests coming back on as well. Dee's going to come back on for Ahsoka, so if you hated him on the first one, you're certainly going to hate the next episode. And if you really like us, give us a like, give us a comment, and give us some money. And just keep loving us, really. Thank you so much, folks, and we'll be back with you soon.